It is a stormy night, with thunder rumbling and rain pouring heavily. The streets are dark and empty, except for a young black man named David, walking home after a long day at work. Suddenly, he notices a fancy car stuck in the mud on the side of the road. A man in a suit is struggling to push the car, drenched and frustrated. Without hesitating, David steps in to help. Despite the cold rain soaking him, David pushes the car out of the mud. The man, Mr. Harris, looks at David with gratitude and amazement. "Thank you," he says, offering money, but David politely refuses, saying, "Just glad I could help." Mr. Harris insists on knowing David's name before David walks away into the rainy night, leaving a lasting impression on the man he just helped. David has faced challenges all his life. Growing up in a poor neighborhood, he worked hard to support his family after his father passed away. Despite being a bright and talented young man, he often experienced discrimination because of his skin color. David dreamed of a better life, hoping to find a stable job that could provide for his mother and younger siblings. Every day, he searched for job opportunities, walking miles to attend interviews, only to be turned down repeatedly. Most employers judged him for his appearance rather than his skills. Even with all the rejection, David remained hopeful and determined. He knew he had to keep trying, not just for himself, but for his family. His resilience and strength became his only shield against the unfair world he faced. The big day finally arrived. David was excited and nervous as he prepared for his job interview at a well-known company. He woke up early, put on his best clothes, and carefully reviewed his resume. This opportunity meant everything to him. A chance to provide for his family and prove his worth. As he entered the company building, he felt the weight of the moment. However, things took a turn when a security officer, a middle-aged man with a harsh tone, stopped him at the entrance. The officer looked at David with suspicion and immediately judged him. "You don't belong here," the officer said rudely, shoving David aside. Despite David's explanation and polite request to attend his scheduled interview, the officer ordered him to leave. Humiliated and frustrated, David stepped outside, wondering if his hard work and dreams were all for nothing. Little did anyone know the man David had helped on that stormy night was about to change everything. Days passed after the painful incident at the interview. David felt defeated, but he knew he had to keep going. He didn't know that something extraordinary was about to happen. One afternoon, as he sat in a small coffee shop, scrolling through job listings on his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Curious, David answered. "Hello. Is this David?" a voice on the other end asked. It was Mr. Harris, the man he had helped on the stormy night. "David, I need to apologize," Mr. Harris said. "I'm the owner of the company you were trying to interview with. I had no idea you were the one who helped me. I want to make things right." David was shocked. He couldn't believe the man he had helped was the billionaire owner of the company he had wanted to work for. Mr. Harris explained that he had learned about how the officer had treated David and was deeply upset. "I want to offer you a job," Mr. Harris said. "I believe in second chances, and I want to give you one." David felt a mix of emotions: shock, disbelief, and hope. This moment would change his life forever. The next day, David was called to the company for a meeting with Mr. Harris. As he entered the building, he couldn't help but feel a sense of nervous excitement. He had been treated poorly before, but now everything was different. As he made his way into the office, he saw the same security officer, the one who had turned him away, sitting at the desk. The officer looked up, his expression changing when he saw David walk in. David's heart raced as he stepped forward, and the officer stood up. "What are you doing here?" the officer asked, a sneer on his face. "I'm here to meet Mr. Harris," David replied calmly, trying not to let the officer's hostility get to him. Just as the officer was about to speak again, Mr. Harris appeared at the door. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. The officer froze. "No, sir," he said quickly, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Harris turned to David and smiled. "David, it's good to see you. Please, come in." As David walked past the officer, he couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. The officer, who had treated him so cruelly, was now silent. Inside the office, Mr. Harris apologized once more and assured David that things would be different from now on. "I want to make sure that no one is ever treated like that again, especially someone who showed so much kindness in a storm," Mr. Harris said. David could hardly believe it, but he knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change forever. As days passed, David began to settle into his new role at the company. His hard work and dedication soon caught the attention of his colleagues. They saw how passionate he was about his job and how much effort he put into everything he did. The respect that was once denied to him because of his race was slowly being earned through his actions. David didn't let the past hold him back. He kept his head high and worked even harder, determined to prove himself in a world that had once rejected him. One day, Mr. Harris called him into his office. "David," he said, "I've been watching you, and I'm impressed with how you've handled yourself. You've shown a lot of strength, and I believe you're ready for more responsibility." David felt his heart race. Was this really happening? Mr. Harris continued, "I want you to take on a bigger role, overseeing some of the company's most important projects. I know you're the right person for the job." David could hardly believe it. From the moment he had helped Mr. Harris during that stormy night, his life had changed. Now, not only had he earned a position of authority, but he was also seen as an equal by the people who once looked down on him. As he walked out of Mr. Harris's office, he knew he had earned his redemption, not just from the company, but from the world that had tried to hold him back. He had shown that kindness and determination could overcome the harshest of obstacles. As David stood outside the building, the weight of everything that had happened hit him. He thought back to the stormy night when he had helped Mr. Harris, not knowing how much that one act of kindness would change his life. He had been treated unfairly, dismissed, and judged because of his race. But now, he was standing at the top of a company, respected by his peers, and admired for his hard work and character. He had proven to himself and others that no one could define his worth. David looked at the city skyline, feeling the winds of change. He had been through so much, but he had never given up. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. He knew he wasn't just doing this for himself anymore. He was doing it for everyone who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. As he walked home, he couldn't help but smile. His journey was just beginning, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew that kindness, strength, and perseverance would always guide him. I hope you enjoyed this story. For more related content, PLs, subscribe our channel. Thanks for watching.